Hey everyone, welcome to Reading the Green and our golf DFS show. My name is Mike. I have Kyle here. If you're watching on YouTube, we have all kinds of challenges in this episode. So I'll be on video, Kyle will be on audio. No Jordan this week, but I think it's still going to be a great show. We have our Rocket Mortgage Classic recap. We'll preview the Wyndham Championship and probably spend most of our time talking golf this week, and I think that's a good thing. So Kyle, how are you doing tonight? I can't see your face, but I hear your voice and it sounds great.
I'm good. Yeah, apparently we're just trying to connect too many parts of the United States via video and hotel internets here. It's not working. I'm on the road this week. Jordan is on a freaking golf trip. Unfortunately, my travels are not as fun as his because I'm traveling for work.
Are you tired? I mean, honestly, like we get I'm so happy for him. It sounds like he's playing great like half the time. But the pictures of these amazing golf courses on the shores of Lake Michigan, I'm getting a little tired of it as I am slugging away at infant childcare right now.
Yeah, both got some challenges in our life, a little different situations. I'm living remote in Iowa. I do get to play a lot more golf. Unfortunately, I'm basically playing in a farm field most of the time. So it's not the same as playing the UP in Michigan overlooking the lake. That's for sure.
Yeah, he sent like a picture of a bagpiper, overlooking the lake at sunset. It was pretty cool. But so we live vicariously through him. I guess he wasn't that far away, I suppose maybe a few hundred miles from the Rocket Mortgage Classic, which is maybe where we start our discussion this week. Not a lot outside the golf world, but frankly, I don't know, Kyle, how much you watched the Rocket Mortgage Classic. I would say actually thoroughly uninterested in the actual golf that was being played, but I was so pumped by our guy Taylor Pendrith leading for 3 rounds. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be, but I was pretty pumped to have a 60-1 guy leading most of the way.
Yeah, I actually watched on the weekend a decent amount, but and maybe this is kind of why it didn't draw your interest as much, but it's a very uninteresting golf course.
Yeah, I agree.
Every now and then a low scoring event is kind of fun, especially after like a US Open type of event. But I mean, you can still have low scoring with some risk of bogey. Guys I guess Davis Riley make a 9. We can go back to that. I don't know how the hell he made a 9 somewhere when he was gonna make the cut. But outside of that, there's just not much to the place. So I did watch a decent amount, but as you mentioned, it was mainly to cheer for our boy Pendrith, who we both had outrights on. But hey, at least I got to share the first round leader there.
It's the skill. I don't know.
It is. I wish. I hope. No, I'm definitely getting lucky. But I do think there is a method to the madness of getting on the right guys. And if they're guys you like for the week, why not back them for first round leader as well? And especially guys like Pendrith or JT Poston, who had John Deere, who did hold on, but there's just a lot of guys that pop in a model and you think it's a good course fit for them, but maybe don't have the stamina to win the event. Hey, those are perfect first round leader bets.
So let's go there first, because I think the Pendrith story is exactly what you see so many players go through in the PGA Tour, especially early in their career, which is ton of confidence, great game, great course fit, all comes together, and how hard it is to do that for 4 days. Like, he played arguably the best golf of the week, but he shows up on Sunday morning having to defend a 4-shot lead, but he had to do that against arguably the hottest golfer right now on tour. And that's just the nature of the beast with golf. And Finau certainly flexed this weekend, and I'm sure Pendrith, hopefully Pendrith takes something away from this as a learning experience and uses it to fine tune his approach. But I'm not surprised that we even said how much trust do you have in Taylor on Sunday, and it was like, I don't at all.
Yeah, I was with you. I was hoping, but I didn't have a lot of faith in that hope. That being said, if you're a Pendrith backer, I think you have to take some solace in that, hey, he's been there now, and maybe next time he'll be able to put together a little bit better round on Sunday. So maybe he's not battling somebody like Tony Finau, who had 3 wins under his belt, but maybe he's against somebody who has 0 or 1 wins. At that point, he can get it to the finish line. So I think from that perspective, hey, at least he's been there now. So next time, maybe he can perform a little bit better.
Well, talking about a guy that has been there and not always gotten it over the line, certainly Tony Finau having, a dozen runner-ups on tour in all sorts of ways, and now getting into the winner's circle. So I have 2 topics I want to bring up. One is about Tony himself, and the second is a pure gambling debate. So, Kyle, is Tony, he's now won back-to-back weeks at the 3M and the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and I believe both those golf tournaments, while interesting and fun to watch, rank fairly low on the strength of field rankings. Is he just beating weaker fields, or has he ascended to maybe the game that he has supposed to have had all these years?
Probably not quite the hot take you're looking for, but I think it's probably a little bit of both. He does have 3 wins in the last 12 months now, because he won what would be the first round of which was the first round of the FedEx playoffs last year.
Yeah,
right?
the Northern Trust.
So, Northern Trust. So he's got the 3 wins now. Would I love to see him do it in a stronger field? Yes, for sure. But he has talked quite a bit at length too about why he particularly played these 2 events. Yes, he was right around the 30 mark on the FedEx point standing, which is just as important for those top guys as maybe like the 120 is for the back end guys. But that he does like those courses, he like those events, and there's reasons he goes to those as well. So I think there is something to it from both sides of it. Like, hey, he's getting better at closing, but yeah, you don't have Bryson, who has played both of these events in the past. You don't have Taylor Gooch. You don't have Sergio. I mean, the guys that kind of maybe lived off of this part of the schedule and getting their top 10s there, which maybe could have pop up and push every now and then, they're not there. So I think it's probably a little bit of both, but maybe he can keep it rolling. We'll see. My answer might change in the next 4 months.
He's such a fun. I was having so much fun rooting for him on Sunday as I was watching his round on Sunday afternoon, and how pumped he was getting, even when he was up 3-4 strokes and he's rolling in these putts and he's pumping his fist. Like, he's such a fun guy to root for. He's a family man. Seems like a really good dude, but you do kind of feel like he shines at times when there isn't a lot of star power. And so I agree. I want to see him do it, whether it's in the FedEx Cup playoffs, which I guess he did last year, or in a major. I'd love to see that. I'm not doubting his game. I want to see him, shine on the biggest stage. So, yeah, just again, and another adjacent take here. Golf bettors, DFS players have so much trouble backing a guy that won the previous week. So much trouble. Like, it's impossible. We'll never do it. Yet it's happened how many times this year?
Yeah, and I mean, we talked quite a bit about this on Pat Mayo's pod with Feinberg on Monday, but it's just been crazy from a betting perspective in general, how much the top of the board has won. There's been a couple long shots this year. JJ Spawn hit one, JTP, a boy at John Deere Open, but primarily it's been, I think they counted 7 outright favorites, including this week with Tony. Or sorry, he was second this week second this week to Cantlay. But they had counted like 7 outright favorites and then like I think another 6 or 7 that was, top 3, which is just crazy, especially now, because I feel like that top 5, top 10, top 12 discussion just morphs so much. And there's players this year have just been getting so hot for, 4 to 6 tournament periods that it's just insane. But it's happened. And yeah, that makes it hard. So even as bettors, to your point, when we've seen it repeatedly this year, it's still been hard to go back to the well. And that being said, I'm not doing it this week. Or I'm not going to do it anytime soon. It's probably going to take a longer track record to make me want to, stay at that very tippy top of the board.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if it's an anomaly or if it's a pattern, but I guess we'll find out what happens going forward. Another comment, and I know I want a debate that we have to settle, but I want to comment on Cantlay really quick since you brought him up as the favorite. So Cantlay, this feels like a backdoor top 3. I think he finished in 3rd. A bit of a backdoor top 3 because he shoots such a good round on Sunday. His last 8 starts: 2nd, 8th, 4th, 13th, 14th, 3rd, a miscut at the PGA, and then a 2nd. He has not finished outside of the PGA Championship in the last 2 months. He has not finished outside of the top 15. This is very similar to how he finished the season last year, where I don't think he shot outside of 70 for like a month. And it's kind of fascinating because he's not doing it with winning, and he's really not competing all that much, but he is being super consistent, and yet I have yet to play him all that much. I just for some reason can't get on the Cantlay train, but it's looking at me right now like this dude has been really, really good.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and especially the comparison to last year, because I feel like the narrative there, and granted, he did get hot in the FedEx playoffs, won the 2nd event, and was in the leader going into the final, right? But it was different. I felt like everyone was on him as the man, and that narrative isn't necessarily there right now. Probably because the wins haven't been there as part of it. That being said, I had him a lot last week. Apparently, unfortunately, I got too contrarian, and we'll get to this a little bit outside of him. So it did not work out as well for me. But I think that's a great point and great one to file away for our listeners, because I think it may be a good click next week.
Yeah, under the radar for sure. I think if he's, FedEx St. Jude, I think that's going to be an interesting spot for him because he just feels like he is in top form right now. All right, Kyle, here we go. Well, we don't have to spend as much time on this as we did over text. But here's the deal. You and I were both holding Taylor Pendrith at 60-1. And I'll spare the listeners the numbers here, but basically Pendrith and Finau going into Sunday have a 4-shot lead on the field. It is very likely that one of them is going to win the golf tournament, although it got a little sketchy there as Cantlay came out firing. So both holding Pendrith with 2 units on him at 60-1, and Finau comes out at -125, ultimately -140 as the round gets going to win on Sunday. And so our philosophies are maybe a little bit different. I was coming out of the math perspective of saying I can take the hedge on Tony even at -140. Here's the amount of money I have to bet to reach whatever goal I have for this week, which was to break even. If Pendrith did not win. And so I did it. I placed a sizable bet on Tony at -140 so that I could break even on the week. And ultimately he wins by 5. And it looks like the best, certainly the best idea that I had. But what's your take on that? Because that, to me, and I think you're right, it's a very short-term point of view. That type of hedge is very short-term. How can I save this week? But if you're a long-term player that's betting tournament after tournament with goals of whatever return you're looking to make. Why is that not the right idea?
I think you kind of hit it on the head. It depends on the different mentalities. So to answer your question, if you're the more long-term play, you just got to trust in your plays that you have the faith that over time you are on the right guys, and you don't want to eat into your winnings by continually hedging against yourself. So if you are on the right guys and have faith in your process and your model, at more often than not, and if you come to a true hedging situation, you'll be able to prevail and keep the integrity of a number at 60-1, as opposed to really eating to that with a sizable bet on the other side of the fence. And I'm not going to say I'm totally against hedging. It's just harder when it's a huge favorite, such as Tony was in that scenario. I think I would be more interested, and I don't think I've had this play out this year, but let's say you have a leader going into Sunday that's unproven, such as we had with Pendrith in this situation. And then maybe he has a couple unproven guys right behind him. Maybe the PGA would have been a decent example. And I know some people hit some nice numbers on JT there. So maybe that is the kind of example where you have somebody lurking a little further back. Maybe that's not a true hedge, but you're like, hey, I have the outright on Mito at this point in time. Like, let me look down board and see who the best proven finisher is and maybe grab them as a live bet. That's something I would be a little bit more intrigued by, as opposed to this situation, even though I had very little faith in Pendrith, but things have been breaking pretty well for me from a betting perspective. So I also didn't want to be the guy that's like, nope, I don't think my play is going to win and going the other way. So maybe there's a little bit of fool's error in there, but it's going well. I'm going to let it ride, man. Yeah.
Well, in Cantlay maybe was the guy in your case where you would look down board and say, if someone could catch him, this is the guy. And I was sweating a little bit because when he came out and he was, one or two back of even Finau, it was like, whoa, I had to lay down 15 units on Finau in order to reach the number I wanted. And you're exactly right. If that all goes upside down and Cantlay somehow hangs around, then I've really shot myself in the foot on my card this week. So I understand if you're chasing that week after week, every single time looking for that edge, you're going to get burned more than you're going to, break even or reach whatever goal you have. I totally get that. I think I just looked at it as being like, these scenarios don't come up that often where you have a reasonable long shot with a 4-shot lead with one other player. It just felt like the perfect scenario to try this out. And, it worked out in my favor. Would I do it again the next time? I don't know. But it was, I felt like it was sort of the perfect storm.
Yeah, that's a good point. And something else that we can't lose in this conversation is, we're not experts. We're not doing this professionally. Right. We try to be the voice of the common man, maybe some of the newer players out there. Because as we got into golf betting and golf DFS, there's experts talking at one end of the spectrum that maybe laugh in the face of some newer people. So we're trying to bridge that gap a little bit. So I think, having this conversation and trying to look at it from both ways is a great thing.
Yeah. It was fun just to kind of figure this all out. I'll offer a couple more points here on the Rocket Mortgage. Of course, our listener league, we don't want to forget about that. Why? Because I won this week. And Kyle,
Hey-o.
you know what happened. We were freaking out about the weather. The gusts that were supposed to come in on Thursday afternoon. And as I laid awake in bed at 11:45 on Wednesday night, I said, I don't feel good about the draw. I need to get more overweight on Thursday morning. And I said, where am I going to do that? I'm going to stack my RTG lineup. I dumped the whole thing in bed at 11:45 and did an all AM stack, and it paid off. I won running away ahead of Derek Howard and Jordan. And frankly, Jordan with his 5 Cameron lineup, I kind of couldn't believe it. But good for him. He came back on Sunday.
Yeah. What was his 6th play? What's his 5 Cameron? I never looked.
Callum. He was convinced that that Callum is Cameron in British English.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yes, yeah. So. Yeah, the week overall, I felt like, well, first off, congrats on the RTG win, and
thank you.
Good job on the pivot. I know we talked about it Wednesday, and I didn't go there because I feel like I've been burned by trying to play the weather more time than not. But this is like the 3rd time in a row I haven't, and it's worked out. So maybe I need to drop that bias. Something else I also learned this week is, I think it's good every now and then to get fed a little medicine, and I did across the board this week. I got too far away from our model. I got too contrarian, and quite honestly, I got too GPP heavy, which I always like to sprinkle enough cash games in to kind of win my cash games to cover my GPP outlay. And for the first time this season, I didn't do that. It's probably, I don't know, I just didn't feel comfortable. So I thought maybe I'd take some more shots. It didn't work out. Hit my cash, but all my GPPs lost. So that doesn't do me very much good. Looking at the model, I should have done better. I mean, Pendrith had a lot of love. I had some. Cantlay had a lot of love. I had a lot. Cameron Young had a lot of love, and I kind of backed away there. Cameron Davis, I didn't have enough of. Homa, Kirk. You could have been just lived at Scott Stallings, lived at the top of the model and done really well. So I went away from that, and I will not make that mistake this week.
Yeah, you're right. It was a very good model week. The top 6 players in our model all faring very well. The guy that I got burned on, I thought Chesson Hadley was there for the taking, both on the betting card and in DFS at 6,900. And he ends up missing the cut. So that was kind of a bummer. But other than that, you're right. Pretty clean top of the model, and should have been an easy, at least on the cash side, easy to make a few bucks.
Yeah, and 2 other guys that sank me that did have a little love, but I was overweight given the amount of mentions they did have. Davis Riley, already mentioned the 9 that dropped him out of the weekend, and then Mark Hubbard, who had the ace, and with the viral video on Thursday of like if I ever had an ace, that's what it's going to look like somehow. But then, he just kind of fell apart on Friday and missed the cut. So those two hurt me big time too.
Well, I think good recap of the Rocket Mortgage. Like I said, we didn't, while the golf wasn't all that interesting, I think some of the circumstances of the event certainly had our attention, and some fun situations from a betting standpoint. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and get our preview in for the Wyndham Championship. Hey everyone, welcome back. We have the second half of the show, the preview for the Wyndham Championship. But first, you can play DraftKings with Reading the Green every week in our listener league. Please, obviously I won this past week, but you can come and take that money back away from me. Look for the link on Twitter on Wednesday and join our listener league. All right, Kyle, before we jump into the Wyndham Championship, we like to highlight the beers that we enjoy while recording. And as we talked off pod, I came in hot from the annual block party in my neighborhood. So I am a handful of beers in. So I'm not imbibing during the recording. But I did have, I had another cold IPA, and that was one of the ones I had. It was called Mosaic and Chill. It's by Black Stack. Cold IPA pours totally clear, but since it's a single hop Mosaic, it's pretty pillowy. So it's fruity, pillowy, but clear and crisp. It's very interesting, and it definitely a crushable IPA for what was like 100 degrees here in the Twin Cities today. So that was probably the highlight of my beer drinking evening. How about yourself?
Color me intrigued by that one.
Mm-hmm.
I had limited options. So I'm in Houston, Texas, and right before the pod, tried to find somewhere to make a purchase. And the establishment I walked into had maybe 4 beer coolers, and it was a bunch of domestics and maybe 2 non-domestic options. So I have St. Arnold, Blissfully Happy Harmony Hazy PLL. It's actually not bad. I mean, St. Arnold's Texas' oldest craft brewery, as it reminds me on the can, and I'm sure I've had a lot better, but in the moment when you've only had a couple beers, it tastes pretty good.
Is Lone Star something that you get in Texas all over, or is that just an Austin thing?
Good question. I feel like Lone Star and Shiner Back are more. I mean, you can get them everywhere, obviously, but I feel like that's more of a Central Texas
Okay. All right.
brew. But that's
right.
I don't know. If we had any Texans, I might be making them yell at their headphones right now. But
we can we can figure that out on Twitter, I think. All right, the Wyndham Championship. We head to Greensboro, North Carolina, to Sedgefield Country Club, where ball striking will be at a premium this week in the finale of the PGA Tour season. I hear some comps to like Harbor Town in the sense that like where you hit it off the tee is really important. The side of the fairway that you're on, how far, if you're going to miss the fairway, how far off the fairway are you? And this becomes very much a ball striker's place. That's probably why we see guys like Kevin Kisner as the defending champion, winning in a 7-way playoff, I think, last year. Russell Henley playing well here in the past. So it's interesting how you start to look at the odds boards and the salaries, how that is reflected in the skill set that's required at this course, say compared to last week, where at the Rocket Mortgage, Bombers certainly had an advantage. So, other thoughts, Kyle, on what's going to be valuable here at Sedgefield?
Sedgefield. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've taken a lot of content, both reading ones and we also listen to a lot of podcasts. And there's usually a lot of veins of the same thinking, and from the different contributors and different things we take in. This week, there's a little bit of a different take. Some people are really focused on the putting side of things. It's Bermuda greens with a lot of undulation. It has the lowest 1-putt percentage of any tournament on the PGA Tour, and the highest 3-putt percentage of the top 5 3-putt percentage on any tournament on the PGA Tour. Those 2 stats were mentioned in the BetSports pod today. But then, as you mentioned, Rick Gaiman and some of the others are focusing more on that second shot, the ball striking, driving accuracy, and making sure you're putting yourself in the fairway and can have the right part of the fairway so you can have a good look at the green. So I think both of those kind of do tie in together, though, because if you're having to hit the wrong part of the green, that increases your 3-putt percentage. But if you're a good putter, maybe you can overcome some of that. So I think the expert community is a little spread this week and looking at this a different way. So I'll be kind of interested to see what that means for ownership as we go into Thursday.
So if you're looking at our model, it seems like we get a lot of ball strikers at the top is what I'm thinking is you get a lot of outside of, I mean, Denny McCarthy is down there, but I see a lot of solid ball strikers coming up.
Yeah, Adam Svenson's leading the way, which is kind of unique for a $7,500 salary guy at 50% mention share at this point in time, and a pretty strong MPI, really. And the strong MPI is going to be across the board for us on our top 5 plays, anywhere from 100 to the 50 mark. Next on the board, we have 3 guys coming in at 44% mention share at this time. Russell Henley at 9,800. See Woo Kim at 8,800 and Sung Jae at 10,500. something you'll notice there, and I think that's something that's going to be talked about a lot this week as well, is just some course history. Russell Henley missed a short putt, I believe only like a 3-footer, to miss that 6-way playoff last year. And Si Woo has won here in the past, and he also finished a T7 last year, he was in the playoff last year and didn't win. So actually a T2 last year as well. So, that's something I think people are really going to focus on this week as well, is good course history here. And then next on the board at 38% is Mark Hubbard, a little bit of a rebound candidate at 7,900, but has a very strong MPI at this time. What do you think about Mark Hubbard, Mike?
Well, I think rebound candidate is appropriate. We were just trying to look into that power ranking number a little bit because it does really jump out on the page. I mean, he is leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of our model as far as a power index goes.
I'm certainly intrigued by Hubbard as well. I think he will make a big part of my lineup. 7,900 salary point 2 helps out a lot. Other places I'm looking to go, I am a big fan of Si Woo in his course history here. 8,800 is a little higher for a player that's as volatile as him, but he has had a couple of good weeks in a row after 3 miscuts. And then just that course history here, and he's on the record saying this is his favorite course in the PGA Tour. So I certainly will have some exposure there. My other 2 plays of the week, JTP, just playing great golf, $8,200, 33% mention share at this point, and a solid MPI right in the middle of the road. I think he's someone I'm going to keep going back to until he gives me a reason not to. And then lastly, in the 9K range, which I'm not a huge fan of this week, but if I'm going to take a guy there, I think it's going to be Cory Connors at 9,600, also at 33% mention share at this time, and a decent MPI.
So a couple of comments. JT Poston, I think 8,200 is a great price for a guy that's basically been playing great since he won at the John Deere. And so I think you're going to be able to fit him in a lot of lineups. Cory Connors, I think, is a good play as well. You make it interesting, but the 9K range, that might go a little unnoticed. I think we have a lot of really good plays in our model in the 8Ks and even in the 7Ks. And so I'm wondering if there's going to be some ownership leverage in the 9K range. And Cory Connors feels like a good spot to do that. And as good of a ball striker as he is, not a great putter, the course could set up well for him. I think Adam Svenson,
I think the 8Ks.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I think the 8K is going to be popular. I think you're right there, Mike.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's just a lot of really good names of guys that have been playing well. And even down in the 7Ks. I mean, Adam Svenson, I think he was one of the guys I texted you right away when his number came out, I think on DraftKings at 80-1 as one that stuck out to me. And I think he's come down, I think, at least to 70. But interesting to see him at the top, given he's been a little volatile lately and isn't that great on the greens. But I think, overall the course setup is pretty good. Let me ask you this question. If you have to take a guy in the 10K range, who is the guy, who do you take? And is anybody even chalk in the 10K range? Maybe Lowry?
I think that's a good segue into the tiers conversation. So let's look at tier 1, where we have Willie Z, who's really nowhere to be found on our model. I think he has 1 mention at this point in time. Way at the top of the board, 10-9. Just don't think that's a great course fit. I love my Willie Z, but yeah, a course where you need to, really be dialed in with a putter. Granted, he's pretty good at leg putting and so shorter putting, but there is some tricky putts here. It takes a lot of imagination on the green, and it takes accuracy off the tee, which you're not talking to Will Z strengths there. So I don't think he's going to draw much ownership. So unless you wanted to really play him as a pivot, I don't think I'll be going there. You have Sungjae at 10.5, which is interesting to me. I think I will have some exposure there. But Sungjae is not in tier 1. He's down in tier 2, which is kind of interesting. Shane Lowry, you mentioned 10.6, tier 1, who has been having a great year, just has not won. Theoretically would fit this course well. His history here is a little bit all over the place. He doesn't have the great course history here that maybe some others do. But you know who does, Mike? Webb Simpson, who's our third guy at tier 1, 10.7. He is his last 5 times out at Sedgefield at this event. Third, T2, second, T3, T7.
That is so insane.
In his over the last 5 years, and they're granted a good chunk of this course, or a good chunk of this board, these guys, a lot of them have all played all 5 years. But Webb Simpson has gained 60 strokes tee to green. The next best player is Billy Horschel at 30.87.
I mean, Webb has been fairly terrible this year, or at least when I play him, he's fairly terrible.
Well, and he's been especially terrible lately. According, and this is via Rick Gaiman. He has lost strokes tee to green, using that same stat I just gave you, in 3 straight events with where that's counted for the first time since 2010.
Right. And do you just think that like he shows up at a familiar place where he's had a lot of success and it just like does a 180? I don't know. I guess I think this is an easy click for a lot of casual players. And if he comes out and finishes top 7 again, it's fine. I don't think I need to. I don't think I'll lose sleep over it.
And this is, I'm just really struggling to get a read on this. And you know, that goes from an ownership perspective and what I want to do perspective. So then, now I was sharing this with our good, DFS buddy, Derek, that plays in our leagues and stuff. And he shared some additional stats with me from a stroke gains perspective, that him losing strokes during this part of the schedule at previous events isn't necessarily unnormal. He, for some reason, he plays at the Rocket Mortgage every year, which he's struggled the last 5. So the WGC St. Jude, the tournament in Memphis was before the Wyndham last couple of years. It's after this year, but he's had awful showings. Let's go back to 20 and 19. He lost strokes at the U.S. Open, lost strokes at the Rocket Mortgage. The Open Championship, we didn't have data. He lost strokes at the St. Jude, and then he goes at Wyndham, shows up and gains 8.5 strokes and finishes T2. So he's been on bad runs before, not necessarily quite this bad, and popped. So I would be intrigued if he was going to be a lone own guy on GPP play. I don't think I can go there in cash just because there's too many unknowns. Spanish National has them at 10% ownership right now.
Well,
it's getting a little more intriguing there than it would at what I thought going into the week Webb would be, 19%, for example.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good weight. I think he's a good wait and see candidate. But certainly the form is not there to even like really entertain it. But it's a good point on the leverage side. Any other plays?
Went down a Webb. Yeah, I went down a Webb hole there. Sorry, had a lot to talk about, and I don't know.
We have to.
So I'm
the Webb and the Wyndham, like it's things. I mean, keep in mind that second that he had 3-4 years ago was to JT Poston. And so it could have very easily been a first minus JT's 62. So the guy, he's been unstoppable here. And, we've played enough golf to know that when you get on a place you're comfortable, it's pretty easy to turn things around. So let's, if you don't have any other players you want to highlight, we can move on to the, I guess one thing, do you want to make a call on tier 1 on where you would put your money on tier 1?
My lean on Tuesday night is Lowry still.
Okay. I like that. I
think
think
the model says is the best play, so that's what I'm going to do.
Last week you blessed us with the different version of the name game. I found out that we couldn't actually, there weren't any marks, or there weren't 2 marks in the field. But Jordan, who's not here, wins again with the Johns, carried by John Huh and Jonathan Vegas. Wins by 30 odd points over you. You had the Matthews, who I think Matt Kuchar and Matt Wallace were your top finishers, and then I was stuck with the Lukes, which I think Luke Guthrie kind of packed it in on Friday because I thought I was going to have a pretty good chance here, but I finished in last. So that leaves me with offering the bet for this week. And I have one in the hopper that I think I'm going to let sit for a little bit, and I'll dial it up if I get another chance here in the next couple of weeks. But a fairly easy one this week. We're going to go with initialed players. And
Okay.
and since Jordan is not here, he's going to pick last. And there are 4 initial players. Now, Kyle, what do you think? Who, between you and me, who do you think deserves to pick first?
Well, you have a dub and I don't. So how about I go first?
All right. So here's the deal. I'm not going to give you the salaries, but I'll give you the 4 players that are initialed players in the field. You have CT Pan, JT Poston, JJ Spawn, and KH Lee. Those are your 4 initialed players in the field. Take your pick.
We have 3 winners on tour this year there.
That is right.
One that has not won a CT Pan. That's kind of nuts.
And he's shown up.
Bet you. Yeah, when he doesn't withdraw after block time. I'm going to take my boy JTP.
I will go JJ Spawn. JJ blessed me at the Valero as he was a deep pick in a GPP tournament. So I'm going to go back to JJ Spawn. And I don't know. What do you think?
That's before we bet. Unfortunately, that's before we bet. Otherwise, we would have got Spawn at 125 because a lot of the community around him that week.
Yeah, no, I know. And he was really low owned on the DFS side. I recall having him at like 3 or 4% in a larger field. So, yeah, that was an interesting one. He's not that far behind. I mean, 22% mentioned share in our model. I could do worse.
I think we need to give Jordan CT Pan because he's higher on the model than KH Lee, who is not to be found.
Unless he'll be withdraws then. All right, there we go. We'll leave KH Lee up for the listeners.
I think we've had a listeners grab up whoever's been left every week, but they unfortunately have not taken home the W.
All right, so as we close out, Kyle, you want to give me roughly what your betting card looks like?
I'm sticking to my theme, I would say, of what I've talked about the last couple of weeks. Betting on guys I've bet on a lot this year and betting on guys I think have a lot of value at the numbers. So Aaron Wise, Davis Riley, at 40 and 50. And my one shorter odd guy is Russell Henley at 30 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went up board from there with Smalley at 80 to 1. And then my 5th guy, we are both on, so I'll let you mention him. But as always, back those up. So my 5 guys with an outright, a top 10 or 20, it depends on the guy, and then a first round leader.
So we have a couple of overlaps. I also jumped on Wise and Riley at 40 and 50 to 1. I thought that those were both pretty good numbers. But Adam Long, 60 to 1, sneaky the last 4 weeks, finishing 16th, 13th, 25th, and 21st in his last 4 events. So certainly has the form to compete here and in a fairly good course fit. So 60 to 1, a good number to get there. Took a couple of other longer shots on who I find to be sort of like a mini Will Zalatoris, Austin Smotherman, good ball striker, 150 to 1. I'm wanting that guy to pop here at some point. I think a W is a lot to ask, but a top 20 finish would certainly be nice. So we'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Final thoughts for the Wyndham? Anything else on your mind?
Long's going to be our guy, I think, man. I'm with you there. I'm Long. I think he is going to be in some of my GPP lineups. So hopefully next week we're talking about him winning.
I know, or we'll just have a Taylor Pendrith situation again, and he'll give way to Sung Jae or someone else near the top.
Nope. We're going to have a final group of Long, Wise with Riley and Henley right behind them, and I'm not going to have anything to sweat.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just wrap it up there. So we have the Wyndham Championship this week, the end of the PGA Tour season, and hopefully we can get some good intel on TPC Southwind next week at the FedEx St. Jude Classic. You can find our content on YouTube at Reading the Green channel, on any of the major podcast platforms, and of course on Twitter at RTG Podcast DFS. Like I said, we'll be back in a week to cover the results and start talking about the FedEx Cup playoffs. See ya.